I've been in your shoes receiving a suicide brief at least 20 times. At least. And there wasn't a single brief when I didn't lean to the buddy next to me and say, bro, if this guy doesn't shut up, I'm going to fucking kill myself. And every time, the response from my buddy was, dude, I was thinking the same thing. So I feel your pain. I'm here to make this different, and I'm here to make it better. On March 29th, 2015, I got a phone call. It was a Sunday. I'm in bed. I'm hungover. I don't want to get the phone, but for some reason, something inside said, you need to pick this up. So I pick it up. It's my friend. She says, hey, I went to see Art today. Art is the name of my friend who I met in Woodley Warrior Battalion. He blew his legs off in Sangan. We met while we were both being medically separated. I went to see Art today. I said, okay, and? She said, well, he hadn't responded to me in a few days. And for the weeks before that, he was acting weird. He's being really irritable, not as responsive. And so I got worried, and I went to his house this morning. And I went into his house, and I knocked on the door, no answer. I called his phone, no answer. So I went around the back, and I snuck in a window. And when I went in, it turned out to be his room. And I saw him lying on the bed, and his wheelchair was next to the bed. And I went closer, and he had a pillow over his head. And I got closer, and I saw blood. And I got closer, and I saw a .45 in his hand. And before she was halfway through that story, I knew the ending. It wasn't some life-shattering surprise to me. So I felt really uncomfortable, not just because he had killed himself, but because I wasn't surprised. A part of me knew that his pain was gone. He wasn't hurting anymore. He no longer needed to suffer. But the other part of me knew he could have pushed through it. Knew he could have gotten himself out of that dark place, because I had known other guys who had been as down and depressed as he was, and they made it out, and they're doing great. I knew Art could have pushed through because he had a lot to live for. So those two emotions confused the hell out of me. Sadness didn't hit until the wake. And at the wake, I saw a dozen grunts who had been to the meanest parts of Afghanistan. And these guys were like giants to me. They had all been banged up and shot up, and they came to work. They came to life every day with a smile on their face and full of jokes. And these guys were heroes to me, and I saw the pain in their faces as they cried at the wake. So that softened me up pretty good. But what really crushed me was seeing the pain in his mother's face and listening to her sob. She didn't stop sobbing the whole wake. And not only that, but she wouldn't move away from the casket. So there's like a line of people who are standing there waiting for their turn to say goodbye to Art. But they couldn't because his mother was there at the casket. And no one's going to walk up to a grieving mother and say, excuse me, ma'am, you mind getting out of the way real quick so I can say goodbye? No one's going to do that. So they just stood there and waited. Her pain resonated with all of us. And as she sobbed, she said two things. She said, my boy, and why? So right around that point is when I let the floodgates loose, and I bawled my eyes out. I cried harder than I have in a long time. When I was done crying, like 15 minutes later, I felt empty. It was like clean slate, and there's only one thought that remained in my brain, and it was, I have to do something. That was it. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I had to do something. Action had to become my mourning and my coping. At that time, I had a blog that I was trying to turn into a book. Art was my biggest fan. So I stopped what I was doing, and I did a whole bunch of research into suicide. Then I ended up going back to the book, reorganizing and making the message about suicide awareness and suicide prevention. Not long after that, I created an event with my best friend, Ryan Loya, called the Sookie Psyche. From that one event, we created a large national nonprofit with the mission of stopping veteran suicide. Our mission is to use humor and camaraderie to bring veterans together to heal the mental wounds of war through therapeutic events and entertainment in order to reduce PTSD and prevent veteran suicide. We hold events that get vets together. Events that get vets together and make them feel good. Our nonprofit has events all over the United States. And I have had the honor and the privilege of meeting thousands of veterans. Of those thousands, I have had conversations with several hundred who at one point held a gun to their own head and considered pulling the trigger. And didn't. Their stories lit a fire under my ass, and their stories are the reason that I'm here today. It's pretty crazy though, right? A gun to your own head while you're alone. That's not some cry for help stuff. That's somebody who means fucking business. How do you get to that point? To the point where you're ready to splatter your own brains. That's what we're going to talk about today. So how many veterans today kill themselves? 22. Everyone's saying 22. That number actually came from a VA study done in 2012. It said 22 veterans kill themselves every day. Well, what's not being talked about is that is wrong. It is not 22 veterans kill themselves in the United States every day. It is 22 veterans kill themselves in 21 of the 50 states. Why? Because only 21 states reported the data. And it's just a matter of time before the next study comes out and reveals the higher number. So what's the root cause of these 22 plus suicides a day? Most of the veteran suicide case studies that we hear about show that suicides are caused by trauma experienced in combat that leads to an inability to feel normal and adapt to the civilian world, exacerbated by joblessness, homelessness, and isolation, thus leaving the veteran with suicide as the best option. But I'm going to take a different route because not all suicides can be related back to combat. I'm going to say that suicide is caused by demons created by tragedy and trauma and an inability to let those demons out of your souls. So I mentioned two weird things here, demons and souls. Let me explain. As human beings, that which separates us from all other forms of life is the notion that we have a soul. Some people say that dogs have a soul, but a dog doesn't know it has a soul. We know. Now, the word soul can be used interchangeably with spirit, karma, conscience. Take your pick. I'm going to go with soul. So now imagine that your soul is a balloon. And as you experience tragedy and trauma in your life, you fill that balloon with demons. These demons create a pressure on your soul, pressure on your mind. Because tragedy, when you are not mentally prepared for it, creates demons that enter your soul and fill up your balloon. Let's say, for example, that at 12 years old, you watch a family member die in a car wreck. Or you watch your dad beat your mom. Or you're sexually assaulted. A demon has entered your soul. A demon has filled up your balloon. And now the pressure in your soul has increased. Now this demon makes noise. He's angry and he yells. And he messes with your mind. And he messes with your emotions. And the yelling makes you confused. Makes you angry, unsure. You don't know what to do. The demon is pounding on your head and your heart. The only thing you can do is make more noise to drown out the sound of the demon. So you turn to drugs. You start stealing. Maybe you start partying, drinking. Maybe you start having lots of sex. You pick up a hobby. You become a workaholic. At 12 is unlikely. What happened to most of the kids that came from troubled homes in high school or middle school? They picked up bad hobbies. So the noise that you create for yourself drowns out the noise of the demon. You don't hear the demon as loudly as you did before. So you become comfortable with this level of pressure. So what we do unknowingly is we tie the knot on this balloon, accept that level of pressure, and we move on. Fast forward to when you join the Marines. You join the Marines, you deploy, and while you're on the fob, you watch a mortar round land on your buddy, blow your buddy away. Pressure's increased. Now you got two demons in there. These demons are working together to really fuck with you. They're making lots of noise. They are fucking pissed. And as a result, you get pissed. You get more confused. You get more emotional. You start pushing people away. You start isolating yourself. You stop performing as well at work. Maybe you start doing spice. You create more noise to drown out the sounds of those demons. Because the sounds of those demons doesn't let you function normally. So you say you have PTSD, but you don't address it really. You don't really want to talk about it. But it's never acknowledged that it's not just what happened in combat. It's not just that thing that happened that you signed up for knowing. I mean, you've seen movies. You knew that shit was going to happen. It's not just that. It's that plus the other thing. So you'll create more noise to drown out the sounds of those demons. And then you stuff those demons down to the very bottom of your soul so it's harder to hear them. But they're still there. So you tie the knot in your balloon, you accept the level of pressure, and you move on till the next tragedy. Now you're out of the Marines, and you or your wife has a miscarriage, or you get evicted, you get assaulted, you flunk college algebra for the 4th time and ruin your chances of getting into a 4-year school. Pressure's increased. Now you got 3 demons working together, making you fucking miserable. So life gets shittier. You don't know what's going on in your heart and your soul, nor your own mind. The pressure's increased and the pain is bad. Then your spouse cheats on you. Pressure's increased. Now you're really angry. But not only are you angry, but you're alone. Because in the last few years, since you've been dealing with these demons internally, you've pushed everyone away. You've been a dick to people. You've ignored people. You didn't value your relationships because you didn't value yourself. Now your spouse left you and you got no one. So now it's just you listening to the sounds of your own demons. All you feel is the pressure in your soul. And the pressure gets so bad that you can't function. All you fantasize about all day, every day, is relieving that pressure and shutting those fucking demons up. So finally you get to the point where you say, fuck it. The best way to kill the demons is to kill the host. You start contemplating suicide. Maybe you start putting the gun to your head every night just to kind of see how it feels. See if you really got the balls to do it. You debate it every day. And you think about your family. You think about what they're going to think if you kill yourself. And you know they're going to be hurt. But nothing they're going to feel is as bad as what you feel right now. Yeah, you know your family's going to be pissed. You know your family's going to be crushed. You're going to let down your children and your wife, your parents, your brothers and your sisters. You know that. They're going to feel immense pain. But it doesn't matter because that's not as bad as what you're feeling, what you're living with all day, every day. So finally, you decide to make the pain go away. But what you didn't realize is that the whole time you had that pressure in your soul, you also had your hand on the valve. You had the ability to let the pressure out. You had control the whole fucking time. And you didn't even know it. The demons will fill that balloon and stay in it for as long as you don't confront them. They'll stay in there forever. You have control of the valve. You have control of the pressure. You have the power to let those demons out. But how? How do you let those demons out? How do you release that pressure in your soul? Talk. That's it. Sometimes it's not that simple, but usually it is. In the military, we don't operate with a 100% solution. We operate with 70, 80, go with it. Well, I'd argue talking is 70, 80%. So let's start there. Let's talk. But the question is, who do you talk to? As human beings, it is our nature to talk. We are social in nature. And it's not in our nature to hold things in. How many of you have ever been lying in bed with someone you loved and told them a secret? Told them a secret about yourself. Or told them a secret about someone else. Sometimes it's easier to tell a secret about someone else, especially if we're not proud of our own secrets. You and your boys, you tell each other shit. Tell each other secrets. Secrets that are supposed to stay within the bros. Well, how many of you guys have ever found out that your buddy's girlfriend knows your secrets? I've had the conversation with friends myself. What the fuck, bro? That was my secret. Why the fuck did you feel the need to tell your girlfriend my shit? I don't know. Sorry, man. I don't know what I was thinking, bro. You know, shit, we don't know. We don't like keeping secrets in. Why are we so social? Why do we have this need? Now, you could say God made us social creatures. That's why he created Adam and Eve. I mean, what would Adam have done without Eve? Aside from jerk off for like 16 hours a day. Using aloe vera from the Garden of Eden, of course. Say you don't believe in God, so you believe in evolution. Well, hundreds of years of evolution have told us that the most social creatures become the most successful. Flock of birds, pod of dolphins, school of fish. They have to communicate to each other. Look at meerkats. Meerkats have a badass fire watch schedule. You ever seen their sentries on post? Meerkat falls asleep on post, getting fucked up. That dude's getting outcasted. God or evolution, it doesn't matter. We're social beings. We need to talk. We need to communicate. If we don't talk, we are forced to deal with our own demons ourselves. And that usually does not work. So who do you talk to about your demons? Oh, the wizard? If you trust them, yes. Absolutely. That's what they're there for. They exist for you to talk to them. Therapists are effective because people can trust them to guard their secrets and not judge them. Therapists exist because people demanded them. Back in the day, people used to tell their friends. But we all know that our friends are going to tell their girlfriends. So back in the day, when you told your friend, a month later, the whole town knew your business. Now everybody knows. Now you wish you didn't talk. You're worse off than you were before. People told their families back in the day. The families would judge them. The families would also run their mouths. So we tell the priest. Go to the priest, tell him about whatever we've done or what we've experienced. And the priest listens. 50 Hail Marys. You should be good. And you're like, okay. You go say your Hail Marys and your Our Fathers. Our Father, who art in heaven. After 10 of them, after all your Hail Marys, you're like, I don't feel any better. So you stop being Catholic. Guilty. So therapists say, come talk to us. We're not going to judge you. We'll guard your secrets. We want to help. So imagine that when you sit in front of that therapist sits in there and nods. And I know sometimes we think they're judging because they're like, And you're just thinking, you judgmental bitch. But they're not judging. It's their job to be unemotional and unattached. Just imagine that they pull out a vacuum cleaner, pull up the hose, turn the vacuum cleaner on, and you start talking. You finish talking. They turn the vacuum off. Close it up. Say, how do you feel? Better? A lot of people are like, yeah, kind of do feel better. And that's why therapists can be effective. Very effective for many people. But for some people, therapists are not enough. For some people, it's not enough just to know that someone is not going to judge you and not going to tell your secrets. Some people also need to know that the person they're talking to can relate. So, someone who's been raped might not want to talk to a therapist who's never been raped. Might not make them feel any better. Somebody whose dad beat the shit out of him his entire life might not want to talk to a therapist who had a great loving father. And somebody who's watched their buddy get maimed in combat might not want to talk to a therapist who's never been to combat. It's not an insult. It's just the way it is. You need to know yourself. You need to know what's going to be effective for you. Try it all. So if the therapist isn't good enough, what do? Well, try group. Group therapy has been effective for many years. Anyone ever heard of AA? It's called Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's for addiction. Addiction. Who knows someone who's been addicted to anything? Yeah, pretty freaking common. Who knows someone who's found success with AA? Yes. It feels good to be surrounded by a whole bunch of people who share a similar experience to you. It feels like you're in good company. Like all of these other people understand you. And that's important. I know people who go to as many as 5 meetings a day because it makes them feel that good. Because their itch to drink is so powerful. The only way they can quell that itch is to go to the meeting. It works. For some. Some it doesn't. My old company, Gunny, my main mentor as a Marine, went to a PTSD support group with a couple of the Marines. These guys had been to some nasty combat, and they came back different. He was in Fallujah for a while, and I mean, you just don't come back the same. They went to a PTSD support group and hated it because they couldn't relate to anyone there. Their experience was so intense that there are very few people who share their experiences, share that level of pain and suffering and tragedy. They didn't find it in much of that group, except for one other person who also didn't like the group. However, they met each other, and they are now each other's support group. So you might not love going to the groups, but you might meet some other people who you really connect with. And those people can become your support group. That is the foundation of my nonprofit. As veterans, we all have a shared experience that enables us to support each other, even if our experiences differ. I've seen with my own eyes in my travels all over the country, veterans from different branches and different MOSs coming together, bonding, and then becoming each other's support network. I've seen it. All that grunt versus pogue bullshit that is experienced when you're active duty, that doesn't exist outside. So long as veterans know that we're willing to be there for each other, that's all we really need. I know a few guys I met on one of the hikes in Texas. Army grunt, Marine air winger, Navy something, I forget his job. Guys are best friends. They're the best support network they've ever had for each other. And they attribute each other for keeping each other alive. That's powerful. Now, it's natural for a grunt to want to connect with another grunt. It's natural for a tanker to connect with another tanker, and a 53 mechanic to connect with another 53 mechanic. Why? Because that one 53 mechanic who was turning wrenches, getting oil dripped on him in 120-degree heat with his flak jacket on while Al Taqaddam was getting mortared. That mechanic has a very unique experience. And only another mechanic with a similar experience could understand him or her. And because that person understands him, they bond. They connect. What about all you? Well, you're not out yet, but one day you will be. And I can assure you that the greatest support group, the greatest group therapy you will ever have is right here in this room. You are each other's greatest support. The greatest thing that you all can do for yourselves right now for your long-term mental health is stay connected with those in this room. Because years from now, life sucks and you're lonely, you need support, you need help, you need familiar faces, you need someone who understands you. Those who understand you best are probably going to be in this room. If you're there for each other, you will literally keep each other alive. So, there are two main things that I want you to leave with today. For one, the number 22 is garbage. It's more like 40-something. For two, the people in this room are the best support you will ever have. So don't lose contact. Without social connection, without social bonding, we're left to face our demons ourselves. That doesn't always work. I'm going to wrap this up with one more statistic. I think most people assume that the 22 are all our generation, people in the last 15 years of war. That's wrong. 69% of those reported suicides are over the age of 50. That's 15 out of the 22 are over the age of 50. What does that mean? We don't know branch of service, MOS, whether they went to Vietnam, Korea, World War II. We don't know any of that. Or if they deployed at all. All we know is that they're over 50. I don't know. And again, I'm no expert, but I'm going to make an assumption. Let's make a hypothetical case study. This is Jim. Jim comes from a good family. He's born in Texas. He's drafted into Vietnam at age 19. Goes into the Army, goes to Vietnam, spends 19 months total there as an artilleryman. Saw and did a lot of really, really ugly shit. Watched a lot of people get maimed. Lost a lot of friends. What he experienced in Vietnam gave him a lot of issues, a lot of demons. It made worse by the way he was treated by the American public. But Jim's a strong guy. So he just stuffed all those demons and all those issues into the bottom of his soul. And then filled the rest of his soul with a whole bunch of other noise. Noise like looking for a job. Looking to create a family. Once he gets his job, he starts to work his way up the corporate ladder. And of course, he drank. He was never an abusive drunk, but he definitely drank a lot. Has his family, has a good life, lives what is considered the American dream, and never once talks about Vietnam. He doesn't want to talk about Vietnam because it hurts. He wants to never, ever again have to acknowledge that that even happened. So he lost contact with all the guys he served with. I mean, he kind of liked to talk to them, but talking to them reminds him of Vietnam. And that sucks. So he doesn't really talk to anyone from Vietnam. So no one in his family, no one in his life, in his circle, has any idea of what he did and saw in Vietnam. His wife doesn't know a damn thing. Well, he didn't have to think about Vietnam because he was so busy his whole life. Well, the kids are all gone. They moved out with their own families. Now he's retired. Now he's got nothing to do. Now there's no noise drowning out the sounds of his demons. He doesn't know how to deal with it. The whole notion of talking about it, that's not even an option for him. Talking. He doesn't know that that's a thing. So he just drinks more. Now he's that retired guy who's always drinking. Demons start to get louder. He's got to drink more to deal with them. It's not abusive. Now he's not as functional as he used to be. And the demons are still getting louder because there's no noise. Finally, he realizes there's only one way to make the noise go away. So, last night, he washed down a bottle of Tylenol with a fifth of Jack. And a lifetime of functional alcoholism has already ruined his liver. So his liver shut down pretty quick, and so did the rest of his body. And his wife is probably going to find him any minute now, dead in his bed. He is one of the 70% of the 22. Again, I'm no expert. It's just an assumption. I hope you leave this knowing the importance of, for one, confronting your demons, talking about your demons, and maintaining contact with all of those you serve with in the military. They will become the best support network that you ever have. Thanks for having me.